a huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Cockpit's not answering. Somebody's stabbed in business class. And I think there's mace that we can't breathe. I don't know. I think we're getting hijacked.
We have some planes. Just stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're returning to the airport.
If you're just joining us, you're looking at dramatic pictures of New York's World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan, where a short time ago we are told that a plane crashed into the upper floors of the westernmost tower.
I was somewhere between 74 and 72 in that stairwell when the second plane went through our building. And it went through our building between floors 77 and 82. So we were just a few floors below the strike zone. Never felt anything like that in my life. That building, that fire stairwell that we're inside, this concrete bunker starts to shake so violently back and forth. The handrails breaking away from the walls. And that's the chance we had for the first time to encounter the police and the firefighters and the paramedics from New York City and the Port Authority. Just the looks in their eyes. No words, just the looks in their eyes. They knew that they were going up and they knew that they were never coming back.
It looked like it was on purpose.
You saw a plane?
Yes, I just saw a plane go into the building.
Why do you say that was definitely on purpose?
Because it just flew straight into it.
I walked up to him and leaned over and said, "A second plane hit the second tower. America is under attack."
Today we've had a national tragedy. Terrorism against our nation will not stand.
I was going to work, and when I heard this huge noise, just get right away, get out of the car. Then I saw that the plane was coming down, and around this area, the wing goes up and down this way. Then with the second, just crashed right away.
First, you hear the sound of the twisting steel and the crumbling concrete of what once was the South Tower, the building that we had been in just 8-9 minutes earlier, coming to the ground.
My husband, Tom Burnett, he was a passenger on Flight 93 that morning. The phone rang in on call waiting. It was Tom. I said, "Tom, you're okay." And he said, "No, I'm not." He said, "I'm on an airplane that's been hijacked. It's Flight 93 from Newark to San Francisco." He said, "They have already stabbed a guy." and they're trying to get into the cockpit. On his fourth and final call, he said they were waiting until they were over a rural area to take back the airplane. And as we sat there listening, I said to him, "You sit down, you be still, be quiet, and don't draw attention to yourself." Well, he didn't listen. He screamed into the phone, "No, no, no. If they're going to crash this plane, we're going to do something." He hung up the phone and led the crew and passengers down the aisle and into the cockpit.
United 9-3, have you got information on that yet?
Yeah, he's down.
He's down?
Yes.
When did he land? Because we have confirmation.
He did not land.
Oh, he's down?
Yes,
Down?
somewhere up northeast of Camp David.
The police officer told everybody to form a human chain, and we held on to each other, and he flashed a light, and he directed us to Building 5, and we went out Building 5.
Did you see people bleeding, and what did you see?
Oh, everybody could see. You want blood? Here's blood. Everybody's bleeding. People are laying all over the floor. It's horrible.
It was as though day turned to night. I'm sure you've heard the description already. It was unbelievable, like a war zone.
I felt horrified, because it's like you don't know what's coming. They kept saying, "There's another plane coming." And all you hear was this rumbling, people was crying, people was jumping out the window. They was waving, like trying to like say, "Help me." Like you see their arms, and then you saw the man jump down, and everybody was jumping. It was crazy.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong.
Like all things 9/11, this video is going to stir a lot of emotions in a lot of people, and it's going to be controversial no matter how well I present what I have to say. And so, with this in mind, I want to begin with a few caveats. The first is that the purpose of this video isn't to debunk all 9/11 conspiracies, but rather it's to debunk just a few of what I personally found to be the most compelling arguments before doing adequate research. The second is that I'm going to assume that you accept independent, reputable sources, and that you don't think that just about every major establishment is part of the conspiracy. If you think that the planes were holograms, for example, then just leave a dislike, an angry comment, and move along. The third is that there's no way that I can sufficiently cover every aspect of every argument within this short video, and so please just bear that in mind. The fourth is that no matter which conspiracy arguments I take on, in the mind of a conspiracy theorist, they're going to be the wrong ones, and I'm going to be accused of not taking on the real arguments. Well, in preemptive response to this, just let me know which arguments you'd like me to take on within a second video. But provide resources, and I mean real resources, not documentaries or conspiracy blogs, but the resources that these documentaries and conspiracy blogs reference. And my final caveat is that my sincere condolences go out to everyone affected by the events of 9/11. Researching for this video has been emotional, and I'm deeply sorry for your loss. So, with all of that said, let's get on with it. This is 9/11 conspiracy arguments debunked. Now, just before we begin, I want to quickly remind you of the official story, which is one that I accept. On September 11, 2001, 4 US commercial airliners were hijacked by 19 Islamic terrorists, who then proceeded to crash 2 of the planes into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center. Unfortunately, within hours, both towers collapsed, causing significant structural damage and fires to surrounding structures, including Building 7, which also subsequently collapsed. The 3rd plane was crashed into the United States Department of Defense, the Pentagon, and the 4th plane was crashed into a field in Pennsylvania, likely due to its passengers heroically overcoming the hijackers. It's one of the most traumatizing events in American history, and it's become the motherlode of conspiracies. Anyhow, with that said, let's begin. Number 1. 9/11 was a pretext for the war on terror.
The Americans would not have been able to invade Iraq or Afghanistan if it wasn't for 9/11.
At the heart of most 9/11 conspiracies is the accusation that the events of 9/11 were either condoned by the United States government or carried out by the government as a false flag operation, as a pretext for launching the war on terror. And one of the biggest arguments for this narrative is that without 9/11 the United States would not have been able to invade the Middle East. Now, first off, it simply has to be said that even if this were the case, it would not prove the conspiracy. This is just as absurd as asserting that because the United States would not have been able to invade Japan if it wasn't for Pearl Harbor, the events of Pearl Harbor must have been an inside job. Oh, yeah, that's right, such conspiracies do exist. Furthermore, and to hit this from another angle, the United States could have easily justified the war on terror through other, cheaper, and far less riskier means. Rather than relying on the silence of hundreds, if not thousands of ordinary people, causing over $10 billion in damage, and making it look like the terrorists were from Saudi Arabia and Egypt rather than Iraq and Afghanistan, they could have, for example, simply allowed the Iraqi forces who had been shooting at their planes for over a year to actually hit a few. Number 2. None of the supposed hijackers boarded the planes. Needless to say, if this assertion is true, then the official story is false, because without hijackers you can't have hijacked planes, and without hijacked planes you can't have hijacked planes crashing into buildings. Indeed, if this assertion is true, then it's damning. But as it turns out, it's not. It's simply false. There's tons of evidence proving that the hijackers boarded those planes. For example, and to emphasize just a handful of this evidence, we have passport documentations of the hijackers entering America, documentations of 4 of them attending flight schools.
His attitude was so bad that one of the instructors who flew with him just said he wasn't going to fly with him anymore. So that was the end of that.
Recordings of them accidentally broadcasting from the cockpit to air traffic control.
Nobody move. Everything will be okay. If you try to make any move, you'll danger yourself and the airplane. Let's stay quiet.
Phone calls from the courageous passengers.
I only have a minute. I'm on United 93 and it's been hijacked by terrorists who say they have a bomb. Just wanted to say I love you and I'm gonna miss you.
And forensic remains of some of the terrorists. The hijackers existed and they did board those planes. Number 3. Neither jet fuel nor office fires are hot enough to melt steel. One of the most popular arguments for the assertion that Building 7 was a controlled demolition is that the melting point of steel is 2,700 degrees, and that since jet fuel only burns at 1,500 degrees, it's not possible that fires could have caused the buildings to collapse, and this is especially the case for Building 7. The problem with this argument, however, is that no official body has ever asserted that any of the buildings collapsed due to melted steel. Rather, and in congruence with experts, they've asserted that much lower temperatures caused the steel to lose its structural strength, which led to imbalances and eventually total collapse. To quote retired New York Deputy Fire Chief Vincent Dunn, who's the author of the book The Collapse of Burning Buildings, A Guide to Fireground Safety, "I have never seen melted steel in a building fire, but I've seen a lot of twisted, warped, bent and sagging steel. What happens is that steel tries to expand at both ends, but when it can no longer expand, it sags and the surrounding concrete cracks. Or, as Purgatory Ironworks puts it,
this is a piece of half-inch thick steel, 836 structural steel designed for structures. This is a 250-pound anvil. Do you see how the structural steel is supporting this anvil? Okay, there. Now, in my furnace, I have an identical piece of half-inch spark steel, just like this. And it's going to be around 1800 degrees, just 300 more than jet fuel, when it comes out. Now watch this. I'm going to take my pinky finger, half-inch solid steel. Check it out. It's a freaking noodle. Your argument is invalid. Get over it. Find a job.
Number 4. Building 7 could not have collapsed due to fire. Another one of the most popular arguments for the assertion that Building 7 was a controlled demolition is the fact that at the time not a single steel frame skyscraper had ever collapsed from fires alone. Not one. Building 7 was the first, and for a long time, the only. What's more is that on June 14, 2017, London's Grenfell Tower was entirely engulfed in intense flames for over 24 hours, and yet it didn't remotely collapse. This, needless to say, ignited a resurgence of support for the assertion that Building 7 must have been brought down by a demolition. But here's the thing, Grenfell Tower was not a steel-framed building, it was concrete. And hence, comparing it to Building 7 is like saying that this glass cup won't smash when I drop it, because this plastic cup won't smash when I drop it. They may serve the same purpose, but they're not comparable in this context. Furthermore, and to lay this assertion to rest, in January 2017, a steel-framed building in Iran called Plasco Building caught fire, and just like Building 7, it collapsed. And hence, Building 7 is no longer the only steel-framed skyscraper to collapse due to fire. Number 5. Building 7 collapsed at freefall. In a nutshell, this argument asserts that because Building 7 collapsed at freefall, it therefore must have been the result of controlled demolition. I mean, sure, Plasco Building may have burnt to the ground due to fires, but it didn't collapse at freefall. Now, in my opinion, this is a convincing argument until you understand two things. The first is that Building 7, like the Twin Towers, was a tube-framed construction, which means that most of its support beams were on the perimeter to allow for more open floor space. And the second is that most conspiracy videos disingenuously only show the freefall part of the collapse, and not the 8 seconds beforehand. The reason for this, in my opinion, is because with the addition of the 8 seconds, the videos reflect exactly what NIST concluded. An internal failure caused the building's internal structure to collapse vertically, and then from east to west, which then left the hollowed out exoskeleton to collapse at freefall under its own weight. It looks like a demolition, I agree, but it's not. Now, if you're interested in a much more in-depth refutation of this assertion, then you can find in the description a link to a video created by Edward Curran. It's very informative, excellently executed, and absolutely worth checking out. Number 6. The BBC prematurely reported the collapse of Building 7.
Okay, the BBC reported that this Building 7 collapsed a full 15 minutes or so before it actually did.
The proponents of this argument assert that the only way that the BBC could have reported the premature collapse of Building 7 is if they were part of the conspiracy, as if they already knew that it was going to come down before it did. The problem, however, is that news networks make mistakes like this all the time. For example, shortly after the Boston Marathon bombings, several news networks prematurely reported that an arrest had been made. Now, does this mean that the news networks were in on a Boston Marathon conspiracy? Of course not. They're human and they made a pretty big mistake. Furthermore, as someone who's worked in advertising, I can tell you that news networks succeed by having provocative titles, clickbait images, and by publishing information before their competition. And so they're naturally prone to make mistakes and to report things prematurely. Couple this with the fact that the events of 9/11 were extremely chaotic and confusing, and that tons of people, including firefighters, were explicitly stating that the building was bulging and that it was going to collapse. it's easy to understand such a mistake.
See where the white smoke is? You see this thing leaning like this? It's definitely coming down. There's no way to stop it. Because you have to go up in there to put it out, and it's already, the structural integrity is not there in the building.
Number 7. No Jews were killed in the attacks because they were forewarned. Now, this assertion originated in the Middle East almost immediately after the attacks, but it didn't receive worldwide attention until August 2010, when the Iranian president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, publicly stated that no Zionists were killed in the attack since one day earlier they were told not to go to their workplace, and that the attack deliberately created and prepared public opinion so that everyone considered an attack on Afghanistan and Iraq. Now again, if this assertion is true, then it's extremely suspicious. But again, it's not. And because of this, it's one of the most contemptible and outright insulting conspiracy theories I've ever heard. In actuality, the number of Jews who died within the attacks is estimated to be between 270 and 400, a number that closely reflects the percentage of Jews working in the area at that time. This assertion is simply a despicable lie. Anyhow, for the next 2 arguments, I've got a guest who knows a great deal about 9/11. Here's Secular TJ.
First and foremost, thanks for having me on your phenomenal channel, Stephen. Let me introduce myself to your audience. I am TJ from the YouTube channel Secular TJ, who embarrassingly used to believe the claims made by the 9/11 Truth Movement. I have produced 2 videos debunking truthers' most compelling claims, which at my dismay, persuaded me to believe the theories. You can check the videos out after watching this video. All links will be in the description area below. Since I have covered the controlled demolition claims in one video, I will address the particular deceptive methods used by the Truth Movement in an effort to expose the dishonesty, misdirection, and outright propagandistic tactics used by the Truth Movement. Quote mining is a common tactic used by the Truth Movement. Quote mining is a term used to describe people who dig up any quote which may support their case while leaving out quotes which hurt it. As we can see, quote mining is similar to confirmation bias, which is a cognitive bias of seeking out confirming evidence while leaving out disconfirming evidence. Here's an example of truthers quote mining firefighters. Quote, "When we got about 50 feet from the South Tower, we heard the most eerie sound that you would ever hear. A high-pitched noise and a popping noise made everyone stop. We all looked up. At the point, it all let go. There was an explosion and the whole top leaned toward us and started coming down. It is clearly stated that the popping sounds were the result of rivets popping and not bombs. If a large bolt would snap, logically it should result in a loud popping sound. It's not unreasonable to assume he didn't know how the building was built at the time of the interview, so he leaned towards something he knew." Interestingly, Nish said that most of the failures were at the bolts and of other connections at the floor collapse. Explosives don't usually make a high-pitched popping noise. Fireman quotes are routinely taken out of context. The most prevalent examples are of firemen saying they heard explosions. I have little doubt they did, as an acre of concrete, steel, and office furniture should make an explosive sound when it crashes down onto another. Steel bolts snapping can make an explosive sound all by themselves. A video filmed by Jules and Gideon Nade is shown on just about every conspiracy website, which shown a few firemen discussing what they heard and saw.
We made it outside, we made it about a block.
We made it at least 2 blocks, and we started running. Floor by floor, it started popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Detonated.
They were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running.
In the context of reading it off a conspiracy site, this may sound like damning evidence. They are saying words like detonated, and they had planned to take down a building. They even say boom to describe the sound. But if you hear the other things they're saying, their body language and context outside of the conspiracy theory setting, something else emerges. Before or after every description is as if they had planned to take down a building. It was as if they had detonated.
It was if they had detonated.
Detonated.
They were planned to take down a building.
They also show body language to show it was the sound of the floors crashing into one another.
Floor by floor instead of popping out.
As he said boom and moved his hand down, this could be interpreted to account for the pancake theory. But the real evidence isn't so much examining the video as examining the actions taken or not taken by the New York City Fire Department after the event. The New York City Fire Department hasn't rallied its members to force an investigation into the possible United States government murder of over 300 of its members. Some sites offer an explanation of saying there was a gag order placed on the fire department. The only place you will find this on is conspiracy theory websites. No mention from the mainstream press about the hundreds, if not thousands of firemen on the scene not being allowed to talk. It is patently absurd. The last claim made by truthers is, why is there a small hole in the Pentagon if a commercial airliner hit it? 2 holes were visible in the Pentagon immediately after the attack. A 75-foot wide entry hole in the building's exterior wall and a 16-foot wide hole in Ring C, the Pentagon's middle ring. So how does a plane 120 feet wide fit into a 16-foot hole? According to Popular Mechanics, when American Airlines Flight 77 hit the Pentagon's exterior wall, Ring E, it created a hole approximately 70 feet wide, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers Pentagon Building Performance Report. The exterior facade collapsed about 20 minutes after impact.
Not identified by name, but identified as being dead, and there are a number of casualties. But the FBI has secured the site, and
But ASCE based its measurements of the original hole on the number of first-floor support columns that were destroyed or damaged. Computer simulations confirmed the findings. Why wasn't the hole as wide as the 757's 120-foot, 10-inch wingspan? A crashing jet doesn't punch a cartoon-like outline of itself into a reinforced concrete building, rendering this baseless assertion patently absurd. The tidy hole in Ring C was 12 foot wide, not 16 foot. ASCE concludes it was made by the jet's landing gear, not by the fuselage.
Cheers, TJ. I really appreciate it. Anyhow, to recap, in my opinion, 9/11 conspiracy theories are the manifestation of massive trauma, frustration, confirmation bias, scientific illiteracy, deliberate deception, and laziness. Look, don't get me wrong, I don't trust the United States government, and I recognise that the war on terror was largely a failure. But, to paraphrase Sam Harris, I'm simply not convinced that a government that couldn't hide a semen-stained dress somehow orchestrated the most profound and complicated conspiracy of all time. A conspiracy that necessarily included the participation of hundreds, if not thousands of ordinary people. People in the military, emergency services, local citizens, and family members of those who died, just to justify a war in Iraq and Afghanistan, not Saudi Arabia and Egypt, which is where the hijackers were from, when there were far easier and way less riskier ways to achieve this. The conspiracy is just not plausible, and the evidence is simply not there. Anyhow, for more on this topic, be sure to check out Secular TJ's wonderful content. And as always, thank you kindly for the view, and an extra special thank you to my awesome patrons. And on that note, this month's patron of the month is Michaela Isom. You've won Free Will by Sam Harris. Congrats.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wrestling with Conspiracies. 9/11, a day we will never forget. We all know the events of what happened on this day, but with these last 2 videos we saw, especially focusing on that last one, we're going to start off by going to Johnny, and if anything popped out to you in that video, this is where I want you to let us know what it is so we can discuss it.
First of all, before we go any further, I think today is somebody's birthday. Yes. So we want to just send our happy birthdays to Triggered.
Appreciate you. And since you brought that up, I was gonna save this for a little bit later, but I have something I wanted to show because when I woke up, like always, I had plenty of birthday messages already on my phone, but one of them stood out, and a lot more have stood out since this morning. But the one that Zach sent, it's an awesome birthday wish, but at the same time, made me a bit sad. Not just because I'm getting old as fuck, but because it is a Wyndham happy birthday. So
And
I
you're not
like
old.
it.
I'm old, but you're not old yet.
Yeah.
I said I'm getting old. I didn't say I'm old. I said I'm getting old. But yeah, see what that being one of the first ones I saw this morning got to me a little bit again. But at the same time, I'm like, it's awesome. I'm gonna keep it. It's Bray Wyatt with a birthday cake in his hand giving it to me. So I'm gonna keep that forever. But yeah, it is my birthday, unfortunately, but fortunately at the same time. I will touch on that a little bit later on.
All right. So, yeah, back to this video. First of all, I've never believed in 9/11 conspiracies. I think it's all bullshit.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, some of them were just crazy. The one about there being no Jews that died in 9/11 made me laugh.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, the thing about the melting steel, and yes, it's true that steel melts at a certain temperature, and that temperature wasn't present on that day. But like he also said in the video, the people that believe this conspiracy don't take into account the fact that you can still burn metal, and metal once it's burned, uh, you disrupt the integrity of the metal, and it can only stay standing up for so much longer after it was burnt. So that's what led to the collapse of the building. The buildings. Let's see. Yeah, they were just. I mean, I know there's other things I've heard before, like like he said at the end that somehow our government had something to do with it. No, it wasn't. It wasn't our government. Uh, our country was caught off guard that day,
Yeah.
and because of 9/11, we now have new, uh, or yeah, well, new different departments like Department of Homeland Security. They created the TSA at the airport. If you're wondering why you have to take off your shoes now at the airport and you have to empty out
9/11.
and they have to X-ray all your bags, yeah, 9/11. If they
Yeah,
want,
before 9/11, they didn't do all that.
right? If you're wondering why sometimes they have your kids stripped down, yeah, 9/11.
Yeah. If you're ever wondering why you have to get a cavity search sometimes,
Yes.
9/11.
Yeah. So some of those that they thrown out here on this video were a little bit odd, and it made zero to no sense to me at all. But what I want to say about this video is it's okay to have questions. We're always going to have questions whenever it comes to situations like this, and that's perfectly normal because like Johnny said, we were caught off guard. It was a very traumatic event no matter what way you look at it. So we're always going to have questions. because of the severity of the situation.
So I don't know if y'all did y'all ever hear about this? I've heard this once before, but I never heard of anything like it again. But the week prior, at a I think it was a high school that was a couple miles away from the Twin Towers, there was a kid that was looking out the window towards the towers, and the teacher asked the kid, she said, "What are you looking at?" And as a kid, I think he was like a Middle Eastern descent. He said, "You see those buildings over there?" He said, "They're not going to be there next week."
Hmm.
I'm wondering if anybody ever thought of questioning that kid.
That is something I have never heard of.
Yep.
Me neither.
I heard it somewhere. I can't remember where, but yeah.
I'm gonna have to look into that now
Yeah.
because just because of the events that happened that day, and for it obviously being my birthday, it's something that I always think about, maybe a lot more than I should. But yeah, just when you hear different things and new things about the end of things being reported about that day, it just always catches my attention because it happened on my birthday.
And if somehow the hijackers, if they knew the itinerary in Washington that day, it would have been a lot more deadly if they had planned it out later in the day, because there were reports that the Ford plane that went down in Pennsylvania was headed towards the White House.
Yeah.
That night, being a Tuesday night, they were going to have a congressional barbecue on the south lawn of the White House. So you would have had every member in Washington, congressmen, senators, president, vice president, everyone would have been there at the White House.
Yeah, it would have been a lot more tragic.
Yes.
For sure. But luckily, we had some brave people on that plane.
Yeah.
And they fought, and they unfortunately lost their lives, but prevented something worse happening, you know? Yeah, I just have way too many thoughts on this, as I always do, about most everything. So now yeah, y'all know my mind by now. So I'm going to go over to Andrew, and what jumped out to you in that video?
Nothing really.
Really?
I just never believed these conspiracy theories. Like, there's also this thing where they claim Nostradamus predicted this 500 years ago. It's like, no, he didn't. He just made all these things, and it could have been about something else.
I mean, they say he predicted a lot of things, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But this was one of the things they tied to it and all this. But
I mean, if you look deep into his readings, you could tie anything to it. If you,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me personally, I think Nostradamus is overrated, but you know, hey, I'm also a big conspiracy theory guy. Like I'll look into almost anything just because I'm interested and I like to educate myself about these things. But yeah, some of the stuff, I don't know, man. Like,
yeah, this is one of the few subjects we're going to touch that I just really don't believe.
Yeah.
In conspiracy theories.
Like, I mean, going back to Nostradamus, like the whole Hitler thing, and him, like people pointing out the word Hitler in one of his
yeah, he was one letter off and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like this is what I'm gonna bring up. So I think there's evidence that you really have to look into when some things do happen. If you're not looking hard enough, you're not gonna find it. But yes, some things that people bring up, as odd as it may be, just weren't a way to prove that this was supposed to actually happen and that people were knew that it was going to happen for quite a while. I'm going to bring up the $20 theory. Do you all know this one?
No.
No?
Never heard that.
Andrew, do you have a $20 bill on you? I wish I did.
I had one yesterday.
But
my wallet.
I went to the casino on Saturday, and I might have bet a lot more than I should have, and I have no cash left.
Did you spend all that playing on that cloud?
Yeah, what do you want to know?
No, dude.
Have a new one.
You have a new one? Okay. Fold it in half long ways. And then fold it in half again.
Long ways?
To where it creates like a point. No, not long way. Yeah. Just down the center. And let me show it to me to see if you got it right. No, you see where the crease is? You have to fold it in. Okay, right there where you have your finger.
Yes.
Fold this edge down to where it creates 2 points going down, then like a point going up.
I think I know where you're going with this.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I wish I had a $20 bill so I could do it.
It's like I think you like once you fold it a certain way, like the only thing visible would be like two the posts.
Like two towers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 2 towers. Yeah.
Yeah. Supposedly, like this is what someone was throwing out there, to where if you look at it one side, it shows the 2 towers and like smoke coming out of both towers. And then if you reverse it and fold that the other way, it shows like the Pentagon and where it hit. So there's just always going to be stuff like that weird kooky people bring up.
And I forgot what it was, but somehow the significance of the date itself, like the numbers meant something.
Yeah.
Like 9/11/01.
Well, the other yeah, see, there you go. Like they say that's where the Pentagon got hit. And now reverse it, fold the 20s the other way. Like fold it the other way. Like,
well, that's the 2 towers, supposedly.
Yeah. See, so you're looking at the 2 towers, but you have it pointed towards us, so we see the Pentagon. Yeah, If you fold it the other way, it shows the 2 towers.
And I'm sure y'all all seen the still image of the smoke coming out of the towers.
That one?
Yeah.
And where the way the smoke looks, it makes it look like there's a devil above the towers. I don't know if you've seen the photo. Yeah.
Yeah, and people have spoken about that image as well. And in other explosions that have happened in other attacks, where you can easily manipulate it.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you tell someone, in this image, you can see like the face of the devil. Then if you focus on it, your mind tricks you. Into thinking, oh yeah, look, there's the image of the devil, and then it's all over the news, and they outline it in red. Yeah. I've seen a lot of videos like that as well.
Like when you see Jesus in a piece of toast.
Yeah.
Or Abraham Lincoln on a potato chip.
Like the Virgin Mary on a tree or something. Like there's been a lot of stuff that has been thrown out there that I just don't believe. It's your mind playing tricks on you. But I will admit though, that $20 bill or that $20 bill one, it's always just gonna be, for a lack of better words, a neat trick.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just somebody just so happened to fold it that way, and it looks like it. Kind of.
When did they, because this is the new design, when did they design that? Do we know when they redesigned this? They came out with, remember, because it
wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, they came out with all these new 20s and everything.
Maybe less than 10 years.
But I'm saying, like, I was I was folding this $20 bill like 15 years ago.
But I'm
and it
sure
was
they're using the same image as the Pentagon.
yeah, like even though it's
Well, it's
newer
not the
bills or
Pentagon.
whatever,
It's the
Or
White
just
House.
Oh, it's the White House. Oh,
even though they're newer bills and whatnot, it still uses the same image.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't
it's the
know.
White House.
That's just gonna be interesting to me always. What's up, Zach? How's it going? If you have any thoughts on 9/11 and the conspiracy theories, or if you know of any of them out there, let us know and we can discuss about your thoughts on it as well.
And the people who say that it's our government's responsible are those are just the people that hate the government.
Yeah. Look, I'm
Like he was saying, if they did this to get in the war or enter the Middle East, there's a hell of a lot other ways to do it without killing 3,000 people, 3,000
Right.
Americans.
Yeah.
So here's I mean I have my own theory of why George Bush went after Saddam Hussein first before Bin Laden, because I mean we know Bin Laden was the mastermind, not Hussein. He wanted to go after Hussein because they believed there was weapons of mass destruction over in Iraq, which we all know there wasn't now. But my theory is because
My theory. Oh, go ahead.
when I was just going to say, my theory was because 10 years before, his dad couldn't get the job done, so he wanted to do it himself.
Yeah. And I also believe maybe Iraq was funding, could have been funding Bin Laden.
Yeah.
Because they both hate America. So
yeah.
So in the end, what you're saying is when President Bush was in there, it was unfortunately perfect timing that this happened.
Right.
Because then it gave him the more ammo he needed to go after them.
Yeah. He wanted to do the job his dad couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he succeeded. It took a couple years, but yeah, they got him.
Yeah.
But then it took 10 years to get Bin Laden.
Yeah.
I will say this though. Look, okay. Not to stray away a little bit, but then again, not really.
Not to make this too political.
Yeah. We all know that I love horror movies. So nothing phases me. I haven't seen it many times. And I don't know if it's the real video or whatever they say it is, but who knows? Because I think the video now has disappeared from the internet. I haven't looked for it. So, but I did hear it's no longer in circulation. I have seen, if it is the real one, the Bin Laden beheading video. Because
I thought he was hanged. The hanging video. Oh,
I mean, he was shot, wasn't he?
Yes, he was shot.
He was shot.
I was thinking Saddam. He was the one that was hanged.
Yeah, Saddam was hanged.
Yeah, that was Saddam. But like I said, there's again, who knows if it's true or not? Like we never really saw the body. But
well, no, because it may be true because maybe they just cut it off after he died because they just threw his body in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I can believe it happening just because of the anger in people because of what happened. And to finally get the person ultimately responsible for it.
Yeah.
I can believe of them acting in anger and that actually happening. But like I said, we never saw the body and we never will because they chunked his ass in the ocean.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying video might be out there still if you look in the deep dark web, but back in the day it was a lot more accessible to find that stuff.
And you know what? Because out of this tragedy, there have been several movies that have come out.
Yeah.
Zero Dark 30 and Flight 93.
Flight 93 is one of my favorite ones.
World Trade Center.
Yeah. World Trade Center is a good one too.
And if you want a more political, like anti-government, Fahrenheit 9/11.
Loose Change, the one that dives deep into more of the controversial side of it. Yeah, that's a good one as well. Yeah, there's a lot of really good ones. One of the ones I saw that is pretty good is it's a bit of an indie movie, so I don't know if y'all have heard about it.
It was United 93, not Flight.
Oh yeah, United 93, but
Yeah.
close enough.
Yeah.
You know, United 93, Flight 93. But
Yeah.
the movie I was going to bring up is the September Tapes. It's about a journalist who goes to look for Bin Laden and has contacts. He gets taken and shown which cave he's in or the caves he used to run, and yeah, it's just a really good action movie. But they make it look like it's real.
There's also a series on Smithsonian Channel. It's called Air Disasters, and there's a whole episode they did on the United 93 that goes through that. Like it reenacts like everything that happened on the flight and goes through the investigation of how it could have gone down.
Yeah. There's way too many movies now and documentaries about it where I think we wouldn't be able to watch all of them, but
I'm sure today there's a bunch of them on TV right now.
yeah. So I want to focus on what Zach brought up because, again, this is one of the theories that people have brought up before. How else did bombs end up in the buildings? How did bombs end up in the Pentagon? This is what, and like I said, I'm glad he brought this up because it's the one I wanted to focus on. I always, for a very long time, in my anger, believed a lot of the stuff that I read. Again, young and stupid, like we brought up before. I was young and I was stupid. If you slow down the video of where one of the towers is falling, if you look like 10 floors below, you can see plumes of what look like smoke, but it's just the building imploding on itself. It does look like
it looks like an implosion. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's only because the building came down from within sight.
Yes. But the main reason that people thought at first that there was bombs in the buildings and that it was a controlled demolition was because I want to say it was a week or two before the attacks happened. Some of the floors in the upper levels were mysteriously closed for renovations, for repairs, and stuff like that. And there was said that people would go up with bags and come back down, and they no longer had those bags with them. And that people who worked in the World Trade Center that would be able to access those floors normally were not able to access those floors. And again, we're never going to know the truth as to what was in those bags because it's impossible now. Unless if you track down these mysterious people that were coming in and out. But I think it's been far too long since then.
Yeah.
To be able to track down who those people were. So I no longer believe it because I've further informed myself as to how implosions and stuff happened. And it makes sense when you hear the information out there. But that's a very good question as well, Zach, is to where are the black boxes from the plane? I believe they did say they found the one from 93.
Yeah, they did, and that's that in the show Air Disasters, they do listen to that.
Yeah. I can believe them not being able to find the ones of the two planes that went into the towers because just too much demolition, too much destruction, that being able to find those, I could find it more impossible than finding the one that just went down in a field. So the one from 93, I can understand them finding it. The ones on the towers, if they never found them, I understand why. And Johnny, can you hear us because you seem frozen on our end? Yeah, he might have to come.
Yeah, I think he froze.
Yeah, he froze up on us. But yeah, what do you think about the black boxes? And do you agree that it makes more sense of them being able to find the one from 93?
Yeah,
Not the one from the towers?
Yeah, the ones in the towers could have been burned up. Well,
Yeah.
because those towers burned for couple hours each, and then the impact of all the rubble, and the impact of the crash itself.
Yeah.
So those black boxes are probably destroyed.
Yeah.
I know they're built to take a lot, but you hear just regular plane crashes with fires destroy black boxes all the time.
Yeah. And I want to read to you the comment that Zach just put up. He said last time he read anything about it was in 2011 after seeing the conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura. What do you think about Jesse Ventura and him bringing up the conspiracy theory he thought of? Me personally, I think Jesse Ventura is a bit of a kook. So I wouldn't believe anything that he says, but
Right.
I think differently.
I don't know.
I blocked it out of my mind for that
Right.
scene. I've seen what he said, but I only saw it once.
And I think maybe he just says it so he can get what's the word, attention.
Yeah, that's
get
what
back
I
on
think
people
so too.
Get back in people's minds. Yeah.
But yeah, I really don't believe anything he says because, like I said, he's a kook. But yeah, for a very long time, I had a lot of questions about, was it a controlled demolition or anything like that? Was it something the government did to be able to justify a war? But again, I grew up. I looked into more details. I informed myself, and I formed a better opinion. A lot of the thoughts I had before was because I had a lot of anger in me, like a lot of people did. So anger was justified.
Yes.
But again, you grow up and you don't forget about the events that happened, but you inform yourself, you become more knowledgeable, and then you form a better decision about
like
what
some of the
actually went on.
Some of the most powerful stuff from that time was actually, I think it was like 1 or 2 days after, when Bush was down in there and he's talking to everybody with the bullhorn.
Yeah.
And the guy from the back yells, "We can't hear you."
Yeah.
And then there's Bush's statement that goes, "Yeah, but I can hear you, and pretty soon the rest of the world's going to hear all of us."
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stuff that came out from it, even at the time, I'm not going to lie to you, whenever we finally invaded afterwards, I just remember being in front of the TV with my sister and like cheering the U.S. forces on, because we were traumatized by all of the shit that went down, man. Like, this is going to be in history books as every generation has its own story
right
of unbelievable acts that have happened,
Like the
And
boomers.
this one is ours.
Yeah, like the boomers, I would say would be Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
Ours, the Gen X's, is 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to be able to say, like, it was 2001, and people in New York which I'd never been to New York before the attacks, but I did go for my graduation in 2003. And just to be able to go to the site and just to see as they were working on the memorial already, yeah, it was a eerie feeling where you could still walk the streets and still see damage, still see buildings covered up in parts with tarps because they just haven't gotten around to replace it or repair them yet. Like that was still they were still in recovery mode in
Right.
2003, which hey man, understandable. But yeah, that there's a lot of things that
Looks like Johnny's back.
yeah,
There he is.
there's a lot of things that we'll be able to say that we lived through that we hope other people don't have to.
Correct.
And yeah, to be 16 years old and watching that happen on your TV and at school, yeah, it messes you up, man. So yeah.
So you were what? You were 16?
Yeah, I was 16, turning 16 on the day, bro. Like that's something I'm gonna touch on in a bit because we're also gonna focus on our personal thoughts and what we were going through on that day. And that's why I'm glad Johnny's back, because now that's what we're gonna touch on. We're gonna touch on the personal side of things. And Johnny, what do you said you remember a lot about what you were going through and did on that day. So I just want you to tell your side.
Yeah, so there's moments in our lives that we won't forget where we were the day they happened. Like I know I've talked to Andrew about how we can't forget January 28th, 1986, when the Challenger blew up because we were both in school. We were watching it on TV in our classrooms.
Yep.
I was in first grade, I believe. Andrew might have been maybe seventh or sixth.
Something like that.
Yeah. But I just remember when it exploded, all the teachers going into the hall and start crying.
Right.
And the other and like our parents can remember, where they were when Kennedy, was assassinated. But yeah, so on the morning of 9/11, so I have two younger sisters. One was in high school, one was in middle school at the time. It was about 7:45 in the morning. I wasn't awake yet. I was still laying in bed, and I could hear my sister telling my mom that a plane just hit the World Trade Center. I didn't think, still laying there. I didn't think nothing of it. I thought, wow, there's just some accident that happened because planes run into buildings, not all the time, but it happened before. So fast forward about an hour later, now I'm in the bathroom getting ready, and they're about to leave, take her to school. As they're leaving, she tells my mom, "Hey, another plane just hit the other World Trade Center." So they're not that okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay, something's not right here. So after I get done in the bathroom, I get my breakfast, turn the TV on, watch the news. Yeah, there's something definitely going on. They have live coverage on all the channels from New York. At the time, I was working part time, so I didn't go into work till 10 a.m. But I saw live on TV. I saw the first tower come down. And then once I got to work, the the radio network that we use in the store had switched over to CNN, and it was like that for the next 3 days. The TV channels were showing with the major networks were showing nonstop news for 3 days. Even some of the cable channels were showing some of the network news like MTV because at the time a lot of the transponders for both radio and TV stations, not just in New York but around the country, were on top of the World Trade Center. So once those buildings came down, those transponders came down too and knocked the signals out everywhere. And then plus you also had the FAA grounded all the flights.
Right. It's never happened in my lifetime.
No, and I even
don't
heard
think it's had happened since.
I heard a story on some like a nature show, some that on that day that's in Florida, some guy was bitten by a venomous snake, and they had to get permission from the FAA to fly him to a hospital.
Right.
But
Yeah, you wasn't up there without somebody's permission. And I think at one time there were only like one jet in the air over America, and that was Air Force One.
Yeah. George Bush was the only one allowed to fly that day.
Right. And they didn't know the status of the White House, so he stayed up there most of the day.
Yeah, and they had to take them to secret locations.
Yeah, they started taking all the different the chain of what they call that, the chain of command.
Yeah,
all to different locations. Like they took Dick Cheney somewhere, the Speaker of the House somewhere else. Bush was in the air.
Yeah, I think one was in Austin, wasn't it? Somewhere in Texas. But yeah, and I remember like sports stopped like baseball.
Yes.
Like 2 weeks off. The NFL took a week off.
Yes, the NFL took a week off. Yes.
WWE was supposed to tape SmackDown that night in Houston, and to this day they'll bode by saying that they were the first quote sport to broadcast live because they switched their show to the Thursday night and did it live from Houston. And that's when Vince came out with his white suit and gave a message, and they brought out the old red, white, and blue ropes. And but yeah, it's like the whole world stopped. And I can also remember, before 9/11, yeah, things were bad. Things weren't totally good. Bad stuff still happened, but it seemed like there was more calmness in life before 9/11.
Yeah.
And after that, everything changed.
Yeah, it's like they say, the phrase that goes around where it says the world changed on that day.
Yes.
And ever since then, it seems like there's just been a lot more violence in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say it's directly because of this, but it changed people.
Yeah, I can remember like it seemed like life was a lot more peaceful before then.
Yeah.
Like even now, I remember life was different before COVID.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the two things we could say, and it's like I said. I hope nobody is able. I know shit is going to happen long after we're gone.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to think what could be worse than this, to be able to say we lived through 9/11 and how horrible that was, and now we have also lived through a pandemic. Like who I hope nobody is able to say something like that in the future.
Right. But if you think about it, I heard this earlier today. College seniors that are in college, seniors in college right now, didn't live through 9/11. Anybody younger than college seniors don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
They just have to remember, because, like you said, this is the 22nd anniversary. So,
Yeah, and I know I've seen, because I know that morning George Bush was in Florida reading to kids, like I think it was like a second grade classroom, and
yeah,
I think they've interviewed those kids today now, and they're almost 30 now. So
right. Yeah, I was 27 driving to work
yeah,
when I heard about them and got to work, and we really didn't work that day. Everybody was just watching the TV.
Yeah.
Because I was working at an auto dealership at the point, and nobody was coming in to buy anything. Now, we had a few cars that were in the service bay getting serviced, but they were there from the day before, so nobody was coming in with new stuff. So we were all over in the sales office just watching the TV, because nobody was coming in to buy cars that day either.
Yeah.
So I actually saw the second plane live on TV hit.
Mhm.
Then I saw both towers collapse live on TV. Yeah.
And if you go out and look on YouTube now, there's because I'm I listen to Howard Stern to this day. He was on the air that morning, and his radio show turned into like a news show,
Right.
with callers and people that work for him giving reports. So that audio is still out there on YouTube, the
Yeah.
entire broadcast.
I was listening to I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Sports Radio, The Ticket.
Yes.
I was listening to that. Yeah, they're still around. I was listening to the Dunham Miller Morning Show, and they stopped talking sports that that morning, and because they were talking about the Cowboys, because I think the Cowboys played the night before.
Yeah, Monday night. Yeah.
It was Monday night, and this was Tuesday morning. And they were talking about the Cowboys. Then all of a sudden, we didn't worry about the Cowboys for the next 3 days on that station.
And since you said Cowboys,
It's
what's
funny.
up, New York? I'm sorry that I have to do this. I know we're talking.
Oh, it was 40-0. 40-0.
40-0. Come on, dude. I hate to bring that up, but
It's the second largest opening day blowout since the Steelers blew out the Browns 43-0.
So I just read something like 20 minutes before we started where it said this is the worst deficit. Like, this is the worst deficit in a game that New York has ever had, obviously, because it's 0. And it was like, this is the best game the Cowboys have had where they put up so many points against like an opponent like with 0 points. Yeah, it's like the biggest deficit in both ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the Jets play tonight in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they played Buffalo, so they were showing that Stephon or Trayvon Diggs, their mother is in town, and so she gets to see both games.
Yeah. But that was a real good game last night. Sorry,
Stephon was at the Cowboy game last night too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw them hugging it out before the game. Like, it's good to see that sort of thing, Like Johnny said, in a world filled with so much hate, to see stuff like
let's
that.
Spread
on
the
TV,
love.
Yeah, let's spread the love, man. But yeah, I was okay. So sophomore in high school, and I was going in just to do my regular thing. By that point, I'm not to put myself like on that level to prove anything, because we all know how much of a dumbass I am. But back then, when I actually tried, I was actually pretty damn smart. The world has changed me too. So back then, by the time I was a junior, I had most of the credits that I needed to be on the track to graduate early if I wanted to, but I decided to stay in and just spread them out, take easy classes, and then some fun classes because I wanted to be with my friends. So I remember on that day, and I've spoken to Johnny about this, he remembers him as well, going to Coach Stott's class.
Mm-hmm.
And what he would tell us is, as long as you get one really good objective for the week and finish that project, the rest of the time you can do whatever you want. Like, they had games installed on the computers. We had Counter-Strike hooked up on LAN, so we would go around and just shoot each other and have fun. But yeah, that morning started off pretty normal, but it quickly changed because he was never that serious of a person. And he came out of his office and he was like, "Okay, guys, I need you to shut off all the computers." They rolled in a TV and we just had the news on. And for that whole day, classes were canceled. We did not change rooms. We didn't do anything like that.
Yeah, because I remember it seemed like almost the whole country was in lockdown because they shut down all the other World Trade Centers around the country and all the federal buildings. Yeah, it's like
Yeah, they wasn't taking no chances.
Yeah. So they gave the option of, if you did want to come be picked up, you could have. But parents work, they can't get out of work. They're also trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, because we were young kids at least I was a young kid at that time, and we wouldn't think as adults at that time. So whatever our parents were going through, we were going through it in different ways. So a lot of them just had to sort themselves out. Some kids got picked up. I decided to stay there. So to be at school, watch the first and second plane hit, and to watch the towers come down, it was like a shock to the system. My young mind could not register what was going on. And not to put, okay, I'm gonna go into some things we used to do in school that we shouldn't have been doing. Okay, not even my parents know this shit to this day. Okay, but we would be in Stott's class and we would have a lookout, and we would be at one of the computers in the corner, like furthest away from his office. And at a very low volume, it was like a group of 6 or 7 of us, and we would be on bangbus.com. And we would just be watching for the free videos that were only like 1:30 because nobody paid. We had no money. So how would we pay for a subscription?
That sounds like something that doesn't exist anymore.
No, it does not. The good old times. Don't clip that.
Yeah.
Zach, I see you. Stop it.
Don't try to look for it.
But yeah, man. So that was the type of shit we would do. So that's just go to show you where our minds were at that time. And just to be watching this, it just, we would see it happening, but it just wouldn't register. And later on that day, like, we were together, we were as a family together at my house. I remember clearly being seated on the couch while all the adults were at the dinner table. And we had the TV on, and it was just on loop. The planes flying in, the buildings coming down, It was just on a loop. Every news company had the same footage going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were all just gathered here like, why are we gathered here? And why do we have like takeout food? And why is there a cake in the fridge? We didn't even like, obviously I remembered because this is my fucking birthday. But all the adults it just wouldn't register to them as to why we were together. And to this, for a very long time, I was angry because for very different reasons. And I don't want to make myself more important than anyone else because I'm not. And just everybody has their own tale as to why they were so mad on that day and for a very good while after that. And the reason I was mad and being a little selfish is why on my birthday did this have to happen? Why on my birthday did planes have to get hijacked, flown into buildings, and why did so many people have to die on my birthday? And that's what changed me for a very long time. Two different things changed me when I was a young kid. It was that, and that same Christmas, and I've spoken to Johnny about this before, my aunt was taken away in a car accident. So those two things, I think, changed me into the person I am today somehow, because nobody should be seeing that shit, man, especially at such a young age. And that's why for a very long time I was angry, was for those two reasons. And now I'm just angry for other stuff because that's just the person that I am. And the world is a very triggering place. But the way I think of it now is I'm more proud to celebrate my birthday on this day because of the bravery that was shown on that day. Like from the people on United 93, from all the firemen and the cops that went up the buildings and tried to save people. Like that, I can't imagine what was going on in their head. No, going up a building, most of them knowing that they're not going to come out alive on the other end.
Something eerie too about that, and I've heard about this too, is that the entire time the fire was going on, and even when one of the buildings came crashing down, this whole time the music system in the World Trade Center was still playing. So
Yeah.
you could hear like the piano music out on the outdoor speakers playing while all the chaos was going on.
Yeah. I was going through a lot because I told Johnny this. One of the things I do whenever we're going to come on here and do this conspiracy theory podcast is I look through many different videos to find the right one to play. And I went through way too many 9/11 videos within the last week and a half.
There are tons of them out there.
And one of the ones I saw is of a guy that worked for a company that rented one of the rooms in one of the World Trade, in the first, on the one that got hit second. They rented one of their boardrooms to have a company meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And they were there, and they were about to start their meeting, and over the intercom, it came out that they were evacuating the building. They were on the 97th floor, I believe. And they made it all the way down to floor 75. And that is when the second plane hit. So they were right underneath where the plane hit, about 2 floors. And they said it felt like the most unimaginable nightmare. That the staircase looked like waves, like ocean waves. That's how strong the shock wave was. I just can't imagine the fear, man. Like the fear they must have felt coming down, and the fear the firemen and cops must have felt going up. Nobody should have to go through that shit. So yeah, man, that's just my personal take as to what I've thought of ever since it happened to now. I went from anger and sadness on that day to just full-blown anger for a very long time. And then my mind finally being able to wrap around what happened and what people went through. And just to be where I am now, and like I said, feeling proud to be able to celebrate my birthday today because of the bravery shown on that day by a lot of people that are no longer here. So it's like I'm celebrating life for them.
And there's even a wrestling tie-in because, of course, we know Zelina's father was a firefighter.
Yeah. Yeah, he unfortunately lost his life on that day. And it's one of those weird things where you don't know how life was actually supposed to happen for those people, or even the people that were supposed to be on the planes but ended up either canceling their flight
Oh yes,
or oversleeping
I've
and
heard those
missing out
stories
on
too.
it.
I've
Yeah.
people that for some reason just changed their flight at the last minute.
Yeah. That is the kind of thing that also messes with your mind because reality changed for you in that split second. Yeah, things could have gone very differently on that day, but history is history. And like I put in the title, it's a day that we will never forget.
Because supposedly United 93 was headed towards the White House. So
yeah,
that is the rumor. Like I don't think we're ever gonna truly know where it was actually headed. But yeah, that is the one location that makes sense. And that's the other fucked up part. Is like now, but before 9/11, we wouldn't be able to say like, oh, okay, so my thought is this plane was headed for the White House. So now, even though we're never going to carry out anything because we're actually decent human beings, now, in a way, that's like a terroristic mentality because that's something that we would never think of. And when I say it affected everything, it affected everything. When you play Flight Simulator, and let's say you're controlling it and take it towards New York, and if you're flying one of the old school games where the towers are still there, and you get close to the towers, they did an update where the game glitches out. It won't even let you go. So it affected everything. It affected everything, even games.
If you want to know why every time you go into a sporting event or a concert, you have to have your bags checked and you have to be wanted. 9/11.
Yeah. You like people bitch about how long it takes to get through airport security. And,
Right.
even though it still takes a good while, it doesn't take as long as it used to. This is why. It's for security reasons. It's to prevent something like this happening again.
Other
Right.
like you can only have one carry-on bag.
Yeah.
There's certain items you can't take anymore. You can't take any liquids that's over 3 ounces. You can't take any kind of like X-Acto knife or box cutter or anything on the.
Right. Because they supposedly did all this with box cutters.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can't take a pocket knife, like a little bitty 2-inch pocket knife.
Right. Yeah, you have to put that in your bag.
Or nail clippers or anything like that. That has to go in your bag that's going underneath.
Your checked-in bag, not your carry-on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, what are you doing anyway? What do you need to take a box cutter for?
Yeah.
Like, and that type of stuff is the kind of thing, like, is the last thing you should take on a flight, just in general.
Yeah.
Unless if you're like Hikaru Shida or something like that, and you're working for AEW and
take a Kindle stick.
Yeah, like sometimes you travel with that stuff, but that was beforehand.
Shida travels with hers.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Maybe if you were Hikaru Shida, but you're not. Okay.
I wonder if Moxley travels with his skewers or his fork.
Yeah, these are questions, bro. These are.
Does he have a certain fork that he travels with everywhere he goes, or does he just get one from catering?
Yeah.
Yeah. It has to be a different fork every single time, because I just saw one of the forks on auction, but I'm not gonna be able to afford that shit. So, yeah. Like, we might joke around like we just did, but this is just life, man. And it's about remembering and just getting by as best as you can. And sometimes it takes a long time. You never fully recover from events that happened, but you do get better. And we're never gonna forget the events of that day. We're never gonna forget that so many people unfortunately passed away that didn't need to, all over some senseless shit. It just shouldn't have happened, but it did. So I don't know if y'all have anything else to say, but that's really all I had.
No, I think that's pretty much all that needs to be said. And, you know, like I said before, you know, there's tons of documentaries and movies and videos out there. So, you know,
And
go check them out if you're not familiar with the situation.
Yeah, because even though we think we know, well, there's always more to know. And
right.
just as a closing thing, I need to look into it, because this is something new that I heard about. I don't know exactly how true it is, or if y'all have heard anything about it. I heard about it late last night, that supposedly they still have remains of people that have not been identified.
Well, I heard today on the radio that they just identified one of somebody from the remains from 22 years ago.
I heard they've identified 2 more.
Right. So there's still.
I'm sure that's possible, because I'm sure a lot of people were just obliterated.
Right. Yeah. All that might be left of them are 2 or 3 bones.
Maybe some ID. But
yeah. So we all know more, like, science is still evolving, and there's always new technology that helps in ways that we never thought were possible. And I'm pretty sure there's been advances in 22 years.
Yeah.
So the fact that I heard that just yesterday, and that we planned on doing this today, I thought that was a very interesting fact, that 2 more people have just been identified. And that's 2 more families that are finally able
Getting closure.
to find that rest.
Yeah.
And even though they had probably come to terms that they had lost somebody, they finally can have some sort of burial.
Yeah.
And have somewhere to go.
Even though they did rebuild the buildings, the footprints are still there of the original buildings, and they made them into reflecting pools.
Yeah.
Something I would like to go see.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm as Johnny knows and as Andrew knows, because I've said it here before, I'm not a fan of flying, but that is somewhere I want to go again. Because they have the memorial, they have the new trade center up. It's just, they have the museum. Like, I'm always going to be tied to 9/11. But yeah, many people go there for many different reasons, and that's somewhere I want to go again.
And I love that they made the new towers exactly 1,776 feet.
Yeah, exactly that. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that we could say. I'm pretty sure there's some stuff that we've missed that we might remember later on, but this could be a yearly thing, just to reflect on the stuff that happened. So yeah, we might have to do this on the yearly.
If you have Peacock, go seek out that first SmackDown show.
Yeah,
September 13th.
that is still, I haven't seen it in quite a while, but I have gone back to take a look at clips and stuff. And now with the network, it makes it a little bit more easy.
Yeah.
Ever since the network came out, to go back and look at these kind of things. But yeah, if you haven't seen that SmackDown, Lillian Garcia, props to her coming out. And just everybody in that show handling themselves the way they did.
And by the way, if you're a baseball fan, since 9/11, every baseball game, 7th inning, they sing "God Bless America," and that's the reason for that.
Yeah. So it definitely changed us as a nation. It changed the world for better or for worse, whatever way you look at it. Change has happened ever since then. But we continue to try and be good people, and unfortunately stuff is going to affect us, but we still do the best we can. So unfortunately, we had to talk about this on this day. But like always, if you have any questions or comments, wrestlelost@gmail.com, WrestleLost on Facebook, and don't forget to give us a follow on Facebook, on Twitch, and on YouTube as well.
And WrestleLost Pod and TikTok.
Yes, and WrestleLost Pod on TikTok. Because there'll be more vids like this coming in the future.
And we'll be back Saturday. We got big news tomorrow. The merger between WWE and Endeavor and Indie are going to close tomorrow. So lots of big news could be coming out this week.
Yeah, because I had plans with Johnny tomorrow, but then he reminded me that that's what was happening. And yeah, this is the last Raw of the Vince McMahon era.
Yeah.
So changes are coming, people, and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah,
maybe they don't go too far.
We'll see. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting week either way.
Yeah.
So until Saturday, hope everybody has a good week and enjoy Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, see you Saturday.
Check you later.